Welcome. I'm your host, Micah Matera. Let's get started. Some parents in South Holland aren't too happy after a school trip included a simulation of the Underground Railroad. Students, parents, and teachers gathering earlier this week at McKinley Junior High to discuss a controversial annual field trip to Wisconsin. The 4-day trip is kind of an immersion course on the Underground Railroad, with students reenacting a slave escape. Many parents at that meeting upset, but former teachers and some students defended that trip.
Let me get this very, very clear. Ain't nobody finna pay to send their kid to play no slave and be treated as such.
If there was anything about that experience that I thought would be harmful or hurtful to an African American child or any child in the school district, I would have been the first to advocate on their behalf.
The experience could have been handled a lot better, but it should never have been taken out.
Teachers also said parents were notified about the simulation before the trip. So, joining us today are Dr. Tiffany Sanders, a family psychologist, and Dr. Kelly Harris, assistant professor and coordinator of African American Studies at Chicago State University and chair of the Chicago Council on Black Studies. Thank you both for coming in. Yes. First of all, should kids know about the Underground Railroad?
Absolutely. Yes. It's an important part of our history, and we should teach our history and the facts surrounding our history. But if we take that out of the parents' hands and we show them all the grisly parts without giving the parents a chance to prep their kids and emotionally help their children deal with the trauma of realizing that we've been raped and we've been lynched and we've been treated like less than humane individuals, it is going to have a traumatic effect. And it looks like it had on some of these kids.
But they said that they warned the kids ahead of time and the parents. And it's been going on for several years.
Yeah, they said it's been going on for 11 years. Some of the parents said they didn't get that information. But the issue for me is, well, what part of that history are you going to talk about? Do you want to reenact Nat Turner? Do you want to reenact slave rebellions? Do you want to reenact that part? And the whole history, when we're teaching it, there are black newspaper accounts, there are slave diaries, there are other things that you can do to really let the student know these are the type of things that happen, rather than reenacting being a slave.
Yeah, so maybe reenactment should be off the table, period. It should just be more of an education with a tutorial or in the classroom, would you say?
You know, books, videos, articles, and newspaper clippings. You know, having kids reenact something, and you're not a trained actor, you don't know how to cope with those emotions and that may run up inside of you, and you're anxious, you're crying. And some clips have said that some of the kids were frightened because this was happening at night, and they were screaming. That shows terror, and we shouldn't be having our kids subjected to that.
And then there's the lynching museum that a lot of parents are like, no, it's not. They're not ready for that. They need to be a little bit more mature. And you, as a teacher of African American Studies, there are ways to teach this, right, so that it is not terrorizing.
Well, it is ways to teach it, and again, I think if you allow students to read diaries from people who were enslaved and talk about their experience, I think that helps.
That's enough.
That's powerful.
That's
powerful. When you go through it. You could just read Frederick Douglass, and talk about how he escaped, and he went to he was on the Underground Railroad, got married under somebody's roof who was a conductor on the Underground Railroad.
Read about Harriet Tubman.
Read about Harriet Tubman. So there's a lot of things that we could do for the student to understand and appreciate what people went through, rather than doing the reenactment.
But how could this go on for 11 years and this is the first outcry, the first hue and cry?
You know, that's kind of surprising. So it makes me wonder whether this last group of parents was truly aware of what was going to occur. And when you're teaching kids, you have to teach them at their developmentally appropriate level. So we don't know the age range of the kids. I can't say whether the curriculum was actually laid out or scheduled in a way that would have made it palatable for those kids. But if we had not given the parents enough warning so they could have prepped their kids, I don't care what age was that child, they weren't ready.
Now, we've seen the reaction from black parents, and this is a black experience, but white children and children who are non-black should know about these things too.
Oh, no question, because the history is part of American history. And I think as an African American Studies professor, oftentimes we hear people say, well, African American Studies, black people need it. Well, the whole country needs it.
Everyone needs it. Everybody needs American history.
It is. And people really need to know what happened in this country.
And you know, just to piggyback on that, you also have to address white guilt that may come out of that situation. So did we have psychologists and social workers available to deal with the trauma that they may have experienced? It doesn't seem like that.
Shut it down or keep it going?
I'm saying shut it down temporarily as you fix some of the kinks.
Shut it down. get some advice from some experts who really know about the Underground Railroad and do other things that students can learn about that experience.
Yeah, because it is terrorizing, it is traumatizing. There's so many things that are going on. Do you see where, and we talked about reenactment, should be used in any way during those times? Reenactment at all?
Do a play.
Yeah.
We always, back in the day, we did plays, you know, we performed and we were, you know, pretending to be superstars. That's what we did as children. Right. And have the children pick out the roles they want to be involved in so they can take more ownership. It didn't occur with this. They were, you know, abolitionists, they were slave owners. And so it was just a hodgepodge, which is overwhelming for children who are 10, 11, 12 years old on their very first field trip. You're just trying to navigate those social dynamics.
That's right.
But more than anything, let the parents know. Prior to.
No question, no question. Let the and get the parents involved in the process, and because the parents have to learn about these things as well.
Thank you both.
Absolutely.
Very enlightening. Still ahead, local spoken word artists getting a lot of attention for their anti-violence poem.